All right, let's dive into a real classic today, Where the Wild Things Are. I'm sure you've heard of it, maybe even read it to a kid or had it read to you. But today, we're going past the bedtime story level. We're looking at what makes it so interesting.
It's deceptive, really. It seems like a simple children's book, but Sendak, he really put some deep stuff in there, like childhood, anger, imagination, even that need for freedom, but also belonging.
It's way deeper than you think. Right away, there's Max in his wolf suit causing trouble. And it's not just playing around. Sendak mentions Max hammering a nail into the wall.
Yeah, that always gets to me. It shows us Max's feelings right off the bat. Frustrated, maybe even defiant, more than just a kid being a kid.
And then the no Max sign on his door makes you wonder what happened before the story even starts.
Absolutely. Adds a whole psychological level to it. Think about it. For a kid, especially a little one like Max, being shut out, even if it's just a sign, it's a big deal. It's like he's rejected, not in control, which are huge in the whole book.
And that's when his room changes into a wild forest. Sendak's writing is so vivid. The forest grew and grew, vines everywhere, the walls become the whole world.
It's like we're watching his imagination take over, becoming real. The illustrations really do that too. His normal room turns into a wild place, just like what's going on inside him.
Sendak's drawings, that's what I love. They aren't just pictures, they work with the words and it pulls you in. You feel like you're there with Max, watching his imagination take over.
And the journey into Max's mind, it keeps going. His room becomes an ocean. It's so smooth, like a dream, one thought flowing into another. It's that childlike imagination just flowing.
And the way Sendak talks about time, in and out of weeks and almost over a year, to get to where the wild things are. What do you think that means, that time part?
It's not just a real trip, that's for sure. Max's journey, it's like something bigger inside him. Kids, they feel things so strongly for a long time sometimes. Sendak gets that. Even a short time can feel like forever when you're little.
So he gets to the wild things, and they've got terrible eyes, terrible claws, they're roaring, teeth gnashing. What a way to be met.
Right. It's like they're showing the feelings Max is dealing with, all that anger, frustration he brought along. But there's also that playfulness about them, that wildness, like they're welcoming him in a way.
And how he tames them, not by force, but with that magic trick, the staring without blinking.
That's a big moment, like he's facing his own monsters, the fears, the anxieties straight on, not hiding, but confronting them.
And doing that, he takes control not just of the wild things, but maybe of his own emotions, too.
Exactly. And that control, it makes him the king of the wild things, which leads to, well, the wild rumpus.
Dancing, howling, swinging from trees. What do you think that means, all that wild
It's
behavior?
like letting off steam, right?
Hmm.
Max is giving into his wild side. All that pent-up energy and feeling just comes out. It's freedom, no rules, no holding back.
It's like a cleansing, getting rid of all that anger and frustration.
Exactly. And that makes the change in the story even more interesting.
Yeah. Right in the middle of the fun, Max puts the wild things to bed, no supper. What happened? He was loving the wildness a minute ago. Now he's lonely, wants to be where someone loved him best of all.
That's where you see how complex his feelings are. He's been totally wild, and now he wants something else. Belonging, connection, love.
Like, he figures out that freedom isn't just about doing whatever, it's also about having somewhere you're accepted, loved for who you are, even the wild parts.
I like that. And the wild things when he leaves, that says a lot too.
Oh, you're right. Roaring, teeth, claws. But it's different this time, almost like they want him to stay, like they've grown attached to their king.
It's mixed. They like his wild spirit, but get that. He needs something more.
So Max heads home, same trip as before, but now it's fast. He sails back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day, and he's back in his room, and what does he find?
His supper, waiting there, still hot.
That ending, the hot supper, it's so small but means so much.
Ah,
What do you think Sendek's saying with that?
It can mean different things, which is what makes the book so good. On one hand, it's like the love waiting for him at home no matter what. Like, even after all that, the anger, the wildness, there's still love, no conditions. Yeah, it's like that hot supper is saying, no matter how far you go, there's always a place or someone waiting for you.
That is comforting, I'll admit. But even with that, you get the feeling Max isn't the same after all that.
For sure. He faced those inner demons, got to be wild, and came back understanding himself better. That's why Where the Wild Things Are has stuck with people for so long. It's about something we all go through.
It's interesting how people see this book so differently. Some think it's just imagination, others see it as like childhood psychology and all those complicated feelings.
It is amazing, the same story,
Yeah.
but people get different things from it, depending on their life experiences, even their age. like the ending, the hot supper.
People talk about that a lot. Some say it was all a dream, others say it really happened.
Exactly. And neither one is wrong, really. Sendak's good at leaving it open. You decide what you think. And it's not just the ending. Even the wild things, people see them in all sorts of ways.
What are some of the ways people see them?
Well, some critics, they think the wild things are like the wild parts of Max himself. The anger, the aggression, all the stuff he's working through.
Like there is inner struggles but made real in that fantasy world.
Uh-huh.
And the wild rumpus, that's him facing those demons, maybe even beating them.
That's one way to see it, yeah. Others think they're more like parent figures, just not the usual kind.
That's an interesting take. I can see it. They're scary, but also comforting, kind of like parents can be to a kid.
Exactly. And then there's the idea that they're like the big things in society that kids feel overwhelmed by, the adult world, all the rules, the expectations. It can feel as wild as those creatures to a kid.
That's a good point. So it's not just a kid going to an island of monsters. It's about childhood, feelings, even society,
Mm.
like a mirror, but for your soul.
I like that. That's why it's a classic, this book. Everyone brings their own stuff to it. It means something different to everyone. But even besides what it means, Sendak's work, the writing, the drawings, it's all so good.
Definitely. His writing, it's powerful, even though it's simple. The way he repeats things like grew and grew or terrible eyes and terrible claws, it pulls you in like a rhythm.
It's hypnotic, almost.
Mm.
And then the illustrations, they tell the story just as much as the words. All the detail, the expressions, they capture that scary but fun feeling of the wild things perfectly.
And how the pictures and words work together, it's great. Sometimes they're telling different parts of the story, makes it even deeper.
It's like Sendak wants us to look deeper, to use our imaginations, not just read words. That's what makes Where the Wild Things Are so important. It's not just one thing. It's words, pictures, feelings. It's all there. It's inspired so many things, operas, ballets, even that movie.
It's captured people's imaginations for generations. It makes us think about childhood, imagination, that balance between wild and tame in all of us.
That's the sign of a great story, right? People keep finding it, seeing new things in it, loving it, no matter when they were born.
It really is. Before we go to the last part where we talk about where the wild things are and how it stayed important, what about you, listening? What does it mean to you? What parts stick with you?
Think about that for a minute while we get ready for the last part of our look at this amazing book.
Welcome back. We've been talking about where the wild things are, and it's amazing how much is packed into this children's book.
It really is. From Max being a little rebel, that trip to the wild things, the rumpus, then coming home, there's a reason people still love it over 50 years later.
And that's what I want to talk about now, why it's still important. Why do you think that is after all this time?
I think Sendak, he understood something about people, something that doesn't change. Like kids getting angry, using their imagination, wanting to be free, but also wanting to belong. Every kid feels that.
It's like he's saying it's okay to feel those big feelings, the ones kids don't always know how to talk about. It's okay to be angry, frustrated, even a little wild.
Right. He makes those feelings normal. And Mac's story, it shows a way to deal with them, to find a way out. That's important for kids, especially the ones struggling with the same things.
And we can't forget the pictures. Sendak's drawings are so well known. They're like part of our culture.
Definitely. The wild things, their faces, the fur, those terrible claws, everyone knows them. They're on everything, shirts, toys, even tattoos. Shows how strong a picture can be, how it can tell a story.
And it wasn't just about pictures. This book changed children's books. Before Sendak, they didn't really talk about tough feelings or things that were a little dark.
True. Sendak did something new. He talked about those hard things directly. He showed that kids' books could be more than just happy stories. They could be about all of life, even the hard parts.
And because of that, other writers and artists, they could tell stories that were more real, more complicated, and better for kids in the end.
And it's not just kids who like this book. Grown-ups, they read it again and see new things in it. Maybe remember their own childhood or even see their own wild things inside themselves.
I like that idea that the wild things are like the parts of us we try to hide or control. What if we didn't have to be afraid of them? What if we accepted them?
That's an interesting thought. Maybe the real wild rumpus isn't about being out of control, but about figuring out how to live with those wild parts of ourselves, the feelings, in a good way.
Like finding a balance between wild and tame, the good and bad inside us. And maybe that's what Where the Wild Things Are really teaches us, to see all of who we are, the good and the bad, and to be okay with it.
That's a great way to end our talk today, looking at where the wild things are. It's been a journey, not just about the book, but about stories, about being a kid, and about things that matter to all of us, no matter how old we are.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and let your imaginations run wild.